Host Kindra is here, but we also have a special guest, and that's Dr. Marni Foderaro. And she has got an expertise in domestic violence, in narcissistic abuse, parental alienation, all kinds of things that we just need to hear more of. And if you listen to the end, hopefully we'll get into a little bit. And I see that, what is this? God came in a garage sale. So that's pretty fascinating. Let's hopefully we'll get to that. And also, she's got a series of books that I hope we know more about towards the end of the episode: Truth, Deceit, False Love, and also talking about near death. There's all kinds of things. So, with that as a basic introduction, hopefully you stick around and hear a little bit more. Dr. Marni, what can you tell us about your background and how did you get here in the first place?
Well, sure. And thank you both for having me on The Aftermath. I'm really pleased to be here. We have so much in common with our stories. I am an author now, as you said, of the book God Came to My Garage Sale, but also the 5, soon to be 6 book series, True, Deceit, False Love, which
Okay.
addresses domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, parental alienation, and intergenerational family trauma. And I'm coming to you from the Caribbean, where I moved 3 years
Right.
ago when I really decided to make a very big life change, but also to put a few thousand miles between myself and my abuser. I spent a lifetime in the Chicago suburbs. I was a high school special education teacher for 35 years and a university graduate school adjunct professor for 12 of those years. But my biggest role was that of being mom to 2 beautiful children.
Sure.
And as loving parents, you can relate to the
Yep.
emotions and the priority that is. And so, just a brief overview of my situation. You know, I chose to file for divorce after 27 years
Oh,
of marriage. And that was when, it was unexpected, actually. I had ignored red flags for pretty much the entire marriage, just being busy, working full time, taking care of the kids, just ignoring things that I really should have been paying attention to. There was definitely a defining moment when I needed to escape that marriage. But the aftermath, the repercussions were significant and continue to this day, even though I filed for divorce in 2013. And unfortunately, parental alienation is a part of my domestic abuse and family trauma. So my 2 children were adults when I chose to file for divorce. So they were 20 and 23 at the time. And prior to my filing for divorce, we had a loving, normal range, happy, fun relationship. And that was all pretty much abruptly taken away. Now that I've done a lot of research on this, I realize the undermining and the smearing and the condescension, all of that took many years, and that was in the making. But it certainly felt very abrupt to lose my children, lose my support system, lose my home, lose a
sure.
lot of things. But I there is hope because I chose to handle this through writing, through research,
Mhm.
through staying true to my values of honesty and love and compassion, continuing to be a role model for my adult children, even though they're not in my life.
Absolutely amazing story and so inspiring. And I really want to hear more about how maybe you're alienated from your children, because some people think the alienation's not real, right? And so I want to hear a little bit more about what you experience in that.
Yeah, sure. It seemed to be where all of a sudden one of my children, they weren't returning my calls or my texts. It was as simple as that. And some days can go by because people are busy, that type of thing. Um, there was a point where I needed to leave the home, the marital home.
Mhm.
And it was decided by my ex husband and his attorney that this one adult child who was in the area would continue to stay in the home alone. And I was totally against that. I knew that there were some very negative influences in that child's circle. I just didn't think it was a very positive thing to be there alone. Plus, I was responsible still for maintaining the home and, for showing. Now that was even before I knew it was in foreclosure. We're in a short sale situation. I was lied to, about all of that. So as far as the alienation, you know, it was really kind of a tough situation because this child stayed in the home, but I was not really allowed to be at the home except for just when we would have a showing or something like that. Um, then, and I was very involved in this child's life. I mean, really, we were so very close. And and in fact, actually, early on, part of the reason why I filed for divorce, my light bulb moment was over pizza dinner with this child and my ex-husband, where he had announced to us he had to take all of her money from her bank account. Over $12,000, and that's hard-earned money, or money that she, that was received from gifts over her whole lifetime. And it was shocking, and that's when I knew the abuse was trickling over to the children. It's one thing to steal from me and take everything from me, but then to realize that, now there were, the boundaries were being blurred, and money was taken from this child, this adult child. And so early on, I encouraged that child to go to the bank and see really what happened, to verify, what's going on there. And sure enough, it was all verified. And I said, it's up to you what you want to do, but I would encourage you to close that account and get a new bank account that no one is on except for you. I don't want to be on it. I never was on my children's accounts, but somehow, her father was. And so we were close. I was still would never say anything bad about, her father. And in fact, I still never have. I'm not about disparaging another person, and I'm firmly of the belief that kids need to have both parents in their life. They just need to know what and who they're dealing with, and they can navigate that on their own. Their relationship is different than the relationship between myself and my ex. And so, I did go with her to another bank, and I didn't even want to be involved in anything. I just let the child set up the account themselves. I mean, they're an adult. They should know how to do this, but there was some trauma I could tell involved there. But shortly after, I lost all contact, and then the abuser, her father, moved her to an undisclosed location in a town nearby where we lived. But I mean, a lot of effort was made to hide the whereabouts. She immediately went off all social media. I'm blocked from everything. Don't know where. I know where she worked. In fact, I spent a lot of time. I helped her get that job, and I spent a lot of time helping her at that job, because she had asked me to. So, but when I went to the job one time, just to find out where she was, I was told I was to leave, that my child did not want me at her place of employment, even though uh, it I was connected to it because, without disclosing too much, I had every reason to be able to go to that employment place.
Sure.
But
Hey, interject with a question.
yeah.
I was just curious because you had said this sounds like a triggering kind of event, but you had mentioned earlier about red flags. So Are there things that you would say by hindsight were red flags that led up to something like this?
Well, the red flags were more with my ex-husband as far as the lies and the betrayal and that
Right.
type of thing. I really don't see that there were necessarily red flags with the adult child.
Mm.
It was clear that they were, to me, it was clear that this child was being instructed by the other parent
Hmm.
to cut off communication. And then, what was very, very hard to realize was that I wasn't included in the junior college graduation. Even though I was very much involved in, the junior college, you know, um, helping with papers and, you know, um, just being there as a support. But it turned out, I didn't even know if the junior college graduation was going to take place. And, I was able to find that out that yes, there was a cap and gown order, under that name. And so then I knew, and I thought to myself, should I just show up?
Yeah.
I
Sure.
should just show up, but I really got the sense that that would really not be good to show up. And as it turns out, there were other people invited that were close to me and close to us, but I was not included at all. And so I actually saw my youngest child, graduate, cross the stage through a live stream a mile away from the actual ceremony. So that was the start of the alienation. And then it moved on to where this child was moved out of state without my knowledge, even though there were court orders. I mean, as you probably know, many of these alienators do not follow court orders. They are
Correct. No,
right.
not at
No,
all.
they are above the law. It seems that
Yes.
you go to a lot of expense and trouble to have a court order, and the loving parent is all about equality and justice and
Yes.
fairness. But that's not the case with the alienating parent. And so there was a court order that I am to be involved in the choosing of a college and the payment and all of that. Well, I was not. The court orders were not followed. Just one of many court orders that were not followed on his part. So she had gone out of state, and so I tried to do all the things a loving parent would do: send a birthday card and send a gift and try to call, but I was blocked with everything. And then letters were returned, gifts were returned, refused from, you know they were refused. So then I realized, okay, I'll do postcards. I'll make postcards so that they have to see I'm saying I love you, please contact me, that kind of thing. um Nothing. And so a lot of time went by, but my story actually takes a really unfortunate turn with the alienation. You know, After a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, I figured at this point, this child is going to be graduating from this 4 year university. And I went to a lot of trouble to find gifts from that college's bookstore. And I'm a handmade kind of mom. So I would make scrapbooks and with her favorite candies and, colors and special things. And so I planned on flying out of state to this college graduation because I was, of course, not included in the junior college graduation. And so I packed up a beautiful suitcase filled with gifts and mementos, things from um, childhood that would be something that, this child could share with their friends and that type of thing. And I ended up, um, you know, I wanted to keep my distance. I wanted to be respectful of their space. At the same time, I wasn't into big confrontations or anything like that. I knew at that point that I was dealing with parental alienation. But so I went to her residence. I waited until I knew the car was gone, and I went and I showed up, and the roommates said that they're best friends with my child. They've known my child for years, but they thought she didn't even have a mother. That she never once talked about having a mother, that they thought her mother had died. And I said, no, it was a high conflict divorce, and her dad is doing everything to erase me from the picture. And I said, I don't want to make my child uncomfortable. you know can I just show you? I brought a suitcase I'm leaving with just gifts and scrapbooks. I went, and I had a couple years to make sure the high school scrapbooks were perfect, and the junior high and the elementary school, and all the holidays, and just organized all of this. Um, and I knew I was giving gifts that would bring a smile, that they would know the connection. And these roommates were like, "Oh my gosh, what a loving mother you are. I can't believe this. You've got to stay and talk to her." And I said, "Well, I'm going to be at the hotel. She knows my number. Here's my number. But you know, this is a lot, to deal with. I can't even imagine what this child is dealing with." And so later on, I got a phone call, with that state's area code. And I thought, oh, great, I'm hearing from this child. And it was the police. And the police said, your child wants nothing to do with you. You need to leave this state immediately.
Oh my
And
God.
first of all, I thought, like, well, how could what kind of role is that a police officer is telling a loving mother who's coming to a graduation to leave the state? And but that's what happened. And so even though I had planned to go to the second graduation the next day, actually it turns out she wasn't even graduating that year. I think there was another semester or so to go, which I didn't know.
Right. And how would you if you're alienated
Yeah,
and erased
no,
out of her
no,
life? You wouldn't know that and blocked from
I would
everything.
not know. I mean, her father refused to tell me anything. Um, in fact, his lawyer even got involved in the alienation, like on some documents saying that, Marnie's children want nothing to do with her, that she is a bad parent, or, the lawyer even said something on some kind of document, which was just unbelievable. So it was extremely painful. And then it wasn't that much longer that I was served back in Illinois with an order of protection petition. And I was like, what is this? What do you mean, an order of protection? Like, isn't that for when someone is harming someone or you're scared for your life? And I could even tell the police officer probably had been through this before and was very embarrassed to even serve this to me. But it was served to me, and I didn't know what to do. And we had talked prior to this. I know that in many of these cases, you know the loving parent has numerous lawyers. Well, I don't know what number that lawyer was. I'm on number 15 right now, with my current situation, so I don't really
Wait,
know what number that one fell into. But I
wait a minute.
ended up
How many
I ended up
attorneys?
getting a lawyer and having to go out of state. And I spent thousands and thousands of dollars. And, this lawyer assured me that, there's nothing here. You are not a danger to your child. But the reality is, when I got to the courtroom, that lawyer didn't seem to defend me. That lawyer didn't, and that judge didn't even allow me to say a word. And a 2-year order of protection was granted. so,
Oh
so
my
there's just no
God.
justice. There's just, like, it just seems like the honest, loving, good people are
Yes.
penalized, and the abusers and the liars, the ones that falsify documents, are rewarded. It's just it seems, it doesn't seem to make sense. But that's what I experienced, and it was extremely painful. Now, of course, those that 2-year order of protection is has expired, but I'm not going to reach out after knowing what they are capable of. And I say they because I really don't think a child, you know, hates another parent without being taught to hate another parent.
Correct.
And I don't think a child, especially this particular child, would have organized all these notebooks and had a whole thing against me with false accusations if it wasn't something that was supported or encouraged by an alienator just to get back at me, just to destroy me. Like I've said before, if my children were minors when my light bulb went on and I decided to file for divorce, instead of waiting until, 27 years of marriage with adult children, I think I would have been a statistic. I would have been murdered. And, I would have been one of those that would have been brought through the court system, put in jail, whatever they would want to do to try to destroy me personally, my relationship with the children, but my spirit. But you know what? I can't be destroyed because I believe in love. I believe in goodness and honesty. And, I'm continuing to role model, even for my adult children, that, bad stuff can happen to you, unjust experiences um, that are devastating, that are horrific. But we within ourselves have the power to choose how we respond to this, you know, situation, to any kind of unjust situation. And I'm going to take the high road and continue to be the loving, person of integrity that I've always been.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing with us. Several things that came to mind when you're talking is, I love how you still call yourself mom. I've
Yeah.
struggled with that. If people ask me if I have kids, what do you say? How do you respond to that? Because you can't explain everything that's happened because it's just unbelievable, right? So it's really hard for people to understand that. So it's, how do you answer to that? And you still call yourself a loving mom. And
Yeah.
so many people have told me that, and we are doing the right things, and we are role models for our kids. And mine is much younger, but I experienced the same thing where I had a protection order. They even took it to the point of criminal charges, and I had to fight that for a year. And, now I'm showing back up in their life, and I'm going to events, but I'm staying far away, just like you are, right?
Yeah.
Just make the decision to kind of stay far away, not get too close, not push the issue. So I showed up to my oldest son's football game a couple of weeks ago, and my youngest son saw me there and texted me, unblocked me, and texted me to send the text. And he was sitting in between his dad and his grandparents, and the text went something similar to, please leave. And I'm sorry, he didn't even say please. Leave immediately. We have a new mom. We don't need you. You're
Oh,
horrible. Fuck off.
wow.
And this is coming from an 11-year-old.
Right, right. So they are taught, their memories are rewritten. The narrative is false. Even if it's done under the guise of care and concern, so your ex, I don't know the situation, but these skilled manipulators can get people to align with them, not only the children, and of course it's the regime, his family was there. What grandparent would think that that's okay? To talk to a biological parent like that. I mean,
Yes.
really, it's unbelievable. But these people are very calculated and skilled, and they will get everyone to align with them. I mean, neighbors,
Yeah.
coworkers,
Yeah.
friends, family, judges, guardian ad litems,
Yep. Been there.
it's
School
yeah,
systems, people in
yeah.
the school system,
Hmm.
all of them.
Yeah.
It's the village. I call it
Yes.
the village court rules against you. Are there reasons or are there things that you would suggest in terms of both identifying parental alienation? Like there are things that you would say looking back gave you a clue of what was to come? And what kinds of hopes and what kind of tips would you suggest for people to bear through an incredibly difficult situation like you've been through?
I'll tell you, looking back, I don't know that I would have done anything differently. I showed up, the same way I always have, in a very loving way, open to communication and all of that. I just, I think I probably should have paid more attention to a few friends that this child was around, um, that were very unethical in their behavior, even illegal with their behavior, and realizing that my child could very easily get roped into that. And,
Sure.
but there's only so much you can do when you're dealing with a 20-year-old. You
That's right.
True.
know, I'm
Very
not
true.
the kind of parent that tracks and trolls and micromanages my children, unlike the other parent who buys those Apple AirTags and wants to know their every move and pays for their cell phone service so they can see every single call and who they're communicating with. I don't want um that kind of involvement. I really have always encouraged my children to be independent and be their own people and follow their own passions, and you know really believed I had given such a great foundation. um you know so looking back, it's hard to I was blindsided. I
Mhm.
didn't really know about parental alienation and how deep some of these abusers will go, like how low
Yeah.
that I'm shocked at what they were capable of. In fact, a lot of just even the abuse of me, even though that was going on and there were red flags for many, many years about infidelities or fiscal money mismanagement, and late nights at work, and there were just things that were red flags to me that I ignored. But
Uh,
I really didn't realize the depths that my ex would go when I kind of saw his true colors. In fact, that night at pizza, when the money manipulation was going on, and I just was kind of shocked and I didn't say anything. I was kind of quiet. The next day, he physically assaulted me, and
Mm.
what he said to me, the threat, was, "Don't you dare divorce me. And if you divorce me, I'll take
hmm,
your house, your money, and your children." And I'm thinking, first of all, it's our house, it's our money, it's our children. I don't look at the children as just mine or his. And then who says something like this? "Don't you dare divorce me." I'm thinking, gosh, wouldn't a more reasonable response be like, "Why do you want to divorce me? Can we work on this?" Or if he really wanted to be divorced, because later out I found out, he has a double life, a triple life, and that type of thing. So maybe he was waiting for me to want to go.
yeah.
um then why not say something? I know we've been together over 2 decades and we have a family and a life, but this isn't for me. You would think there would be more of a reasonable discussion, but no, it was a threat. "Don't you dare divorce me." And now looking back at that, I'm thinking, he has high profile position, loves his public persona, which is false because they are very different behind closed doors than they are out there in the public interacting with others. And
Yes.
it's kind of like the mask slips. In fact, that's why in all of my books in the True Deceit False Love series, I have an abuser, and abusers can be men or women. It's not a gender situation. There are some evil ex-wives that make up stories and alienate, children from a loving father. But anyway, I have an abuser with a mask slipping on as the visual for all of my books, because they really are people that you don't know.
And as we start thinking of closing, that coming to an end, I'm sure glad you mentioned that. Could you tell us a little bit more about this? And is this part of your healing process as well too? Because a lot of people write, I've written, I think Kindra as well too. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about those things as we sort of wrap up.
Well, sure. Yes, I found my writing when I had to have a garage sale, when I lost everything and I had some spiritual miracles happen. And so there were so many, and I did a lot of research on that, and it really kind of gave me the feeling that I was loved and supported. But there were some pretty cool experiences that I, went through. And so I wrote my first book, God Came to My Garage Sale. And I know, Mitch, in your novel, you're a music lover and you write about music, throughout your book, and I do too. Every single chapter has a reference to music, because that the music kind of marks the moments of our lives. And so I wrote that book, and I did many versions of it. I chose not to include anything negative about the abuse, just basically about a woman who had spiritual miracles. But then my True Deceit False Love series, that writing was extremely healing, and I decided to leave the Chicago suburbs and move to the Caribbean. And that is where I wrote the 5-book series. And I'm not into writing a tell-all autobiographical point the finger at someone else situation, even though there's reason to point the finger. We can't take responsibility for what abusers will do to us, but we can choose how we respond. And I respond still with my integrity of honesty and love and compassion. But research and knowledge has really helped me understand, because I think anyone who's been through parental alienation, and Kindra, your experience that just happened it's devastating. You know, it's almost too much for any human to even comprehend or experience. In fact, most people don't understand it unless they've really been through something like this with someone. But I would write down terms, to just try to understand narcissism, word salad, smear campaign, all these things. Well, my list of terms went from 100 to 1,000 to 10,000, and that's when I wrote my first book, called True Deceit, False Love. But it's 15,555 terms and phrases on all of this, domestic violence, family trauma. And then I found, words which have the power to hurt you have the power to heal you as well.
Right.
Writing just is a very healing process to just get, even physically, to get these emotions um, out of your body and onto a page. And so I wrote poetry from many different points of view, but that someone could pick up and they could relate to it, whether they were a dad or a mom or a grandparent, or even a boss or an employee that are dealing with toxic, abusive situations. And that led to a survivor's workbook and free verse poetry, and then even a word search puzzle book, which turns out to be a bestseller, which floors me. But I would think the acrostic poetry would be the one that would be most well received. Um, but people need to find different creative ways to heal and carry on, um, or else they don't heal and they don't carry on. And I choose to embrace life. And I wanted to be close to nature. I wanted to be true to who I am. I do understand, Kendra, when you're saying if someone asks you about being a parent, I am still a parent. I'm still a loving mom to 2 beautiful children. It depends on who I'm talking with, whether I say they're not in my life because of alienation, because most people don't understand that. A lot of people think it takes 2 people to make an estrangement like that happen. And actually, estrangement is tremendously different than alienation. I have chosen to estrange from a few people since my alienation. And that's on my terms because I need to put up some healthy boundaries with some people. Alienation is very different. It's not anything that you choose. It's really, a campaign of denigration that's done by one alienating parent. So the healing has been very therapeutic, but a change of scenery really helped as well. And we really didn't, I know, have time to talk about my other child, but my other child was in my life until he was 30 years old. So for your audience, alienation can happen with adult children, and these kids at some point you think that they know better. They know which parent lies, cheats, and steals and which parent doesn't. But it might be easier for them to just leave it the way it is instead of reaching out to that other parent, because the flack that they will get, it's just not worth it for them. They don't want the drama, they don't want the chaos. But they are put in a position where they are used as a weapon against the loving parent, and it's so unfortunate.
It is. Well, you are an extremely strong woman. And oh my gosh, let me just say I admire you and your strength and what you've gone through. And I can't even imagine on top of that being physically abused. You've just gone through a tremendous hurt and you've come out on the other side and you're stronger and you're somebody that people can look up to. And I absolutely love that you have a book series. I cannot wait to dig in. The word search was actually the first one I was going to go for. So that's
it really resonates with people. It's very healing. It's very therapeutic.
Yeah. Well, it was so wonderful having you on.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely amazing.
Well, thank you both so much. And I wish you both, just only the best when it comes to your children and to your family. And, I believe that even though justice does not always prevail, and unfortunately, I'm even in the throes of it right now where justice may not prevail, but truth eventually does come out, and goodness can always be part of it if we choose to handle our challenges with love and honesty.
You bet. Couldn't say it any better, because whatever is hidden will someday come to the light.
Oh,
So
yes.
thank you so much for being our guest today.
Yeah. Thank you
Appreciate
so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. God bless.
All right.
Bye.
Day is full.